there's a lot of, for lack of a better way to describe it, melancholy, regretful reflection in your songs. Do you think that's is that sort of a trademark of a small town, or is it a trademark of life that I think people in big cities kind of identify with? And I mean, it's like, I got to get out of here,
right?
Language and stuff that we have. In small towns, I guess that's one of the focuses, kind of,
It definitely is. That's putting your brain from the time you're little, is to, get out of here, do more than I did, sort of. What size of town did you come from?
Well, Shreveport was where I was born and raised, kind of. But, again, I stayed with my grandparents in Marion a lot, and summers for sure and whatever. So it's really... you kind of know everybody. It's like the druggist is high all the time.
Yes.
And
It's true. You're right.
There's like 2 gas stations. There was a Dairy Queen, sort of wasn't a real Dairy Queen, but where you could get ice cream, but there were 2 pinball machines. And
it's like the Dairy Dip or the...
It wasn't quite as good as a Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
They didn't have frosted mugs or anything.
True. There's something to that, though, like knowing, like you're talking about the druggist and the people who work at the gas station. And as a kid, you kind of don't like it because everybody's in your business. And if you do something, they're going to tell your parents. But it's really a good way to grow up because people do care and know what's going on. I think that's maybe a bigger gift for me than I realized growing up in a small town.
What do you think is the tipping point for hanging on to your dreams and living with your regrets?
That's a good...
Because I feel this homecoming queen person is now living with her regrets.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like the dream is gone. And it made me wonder, listening to that. I thought about how important that is. Where's that point in your life where you can't go back?
I think a lot of times, especially for the girl and homecoming queen, it's when you have your own kids. If you're stuck in a situation that's not great, you're stuck there because, like my mom always says, when you have kids, your life is not your own anymore. Like you're taking care of someone else, and somebody else's life is literally in your hands. And I think that's a lot of time, not always. I mean, definitely, that's not the case for everybody. But if you have kids before you're really ready to have them, I think sometimes that can be it, where you're, okay, I'm here. Or if you're married, if you marry the wrong person, but you deep in your heart, you believe, you know what, you get married, you stick it out. There you are. And I think, too, it's the weight of bills. And, I see a lot of people that say, hey, I'm going to go to college, but I'm going to work for a year. And what happens in that year is they usually get a job where when you're 18, whatever they're making an hour is a lot. So they get a truck. And so then they've got a payment. And then maybe they buy a house. And then they're stuck in these payments they have to make. And some of the things that I think dreams require being able to live on not a lot. Or for me, that's what it required.
Freedoms.
Like,
it's weird. I think kids can also be, for some people, a freedom in its own way. Because it's also, excuse is the wrong word, but it's like when your life does become someone else's. It's like a lot of people, I think, were born to be good mothers.
Yes.
And even though their dreams may have been some Cinderella movie, I think children a lot of times, and by freedom I mean it takes the pressure of trying to be Cinderella away.
That's true.
And it gives you, the freedom to live a life of joy, with your children.
Well, and in saying that, I mean, I think kids are the biggest dream. And so I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean,
no, I know what you're saying though, and that's what happened to her because she did have the queen dream.
Yeah.
but it's not real in a lot of cases.
Well, and I think too, I think no matter where we are in life, I saw a quote that said, "Paradise is only paradise looking back on it." Like, you don't realize in the moment, like, man, this is paradise. I think we all think, or I'm guilty of thinking, oh, it's only going to get better from here, whatever it is. Like, oh, this is great. This is just going to keep going up, and it doesn't always. And especially when you're 17, you don't know. When you're 17, 19 seems old. So, and I know for me at 17, I thought I knew it all. And those people, like the homecoming queen, it's the prettiest girl you'll ever know.
Yeah.
When you're that age.
I don't think planned paradise really works either.
No. I think you're right. Yeah.
I mean, is winning Entertainer of the Year was joyous because it's something that you aspire to. But it's like planning a good drunk. They're never very good.
Yeah.
It's like the ones that just creep up on you and what the hell happened and we're having so much fun. And I think paradise is that way too. It's like those vacations that you don't plan. It's like, Floyd sitting on the beach, or Howard, whoever it was, and Andy Griffith is like, here's paradise.
You're so right.
Yeah. But sometimes when you're just out in a truck and you wind up someplace you never heard of, and it's like, oh my God, and one thing leads to another, and you have the best time of your life.
Yeah. You talking about Entertainer of the Year, I love that you bring that up, because I've been nominated, I mean, not for Entertainer of the Year, and definitely not the kinds of awards
just wait.
You've
just
been,
wait.
but I've been nominated for every show, CMAs, ACMs, Grammys, and was fortunate enough to win a CMA for Song of the Year a couple years ago. And the biggest gift in that for me was I realized that winning doesn't feel all that different from being nominated. Everybody thinks that's just, oh man, to win that. I mean, it does, but it's not what you, like you said, with Entertainer of the Year, you were probably like, oh, this is great.
And then there's also that kind of humbling little bird tweeting in the back of your head. Look at all your buds around, They were pretty good too, weren't they? And so, I feel like I need to apologize. There's a part of me, I guess, I like to think that I'm that real. Before you get out of here, I have to ask about your dad, and that song is so poignant, and it's so you're wanting to help your mom in there and all those things. My dad and I were so incredibly close, and I haven't ever written that song. I just, I kind of look at that blank piece of paper every now and then and go, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever do that. Maybe I will, but it's not that I'm not ready. I just don't want to yet or something.
I don't think I probably ever would have written that song had I not. I wrote that with Shane McAnally, and the story of that is my dad was killed in a logging accident, and it was right before 9/11. It was the July before 9/11, and 9/11 happened, and you're still really raw in that grief. You never completely get over that grief, but that first year, everything just hits you harder. And I remember watching CNN and thinking, and seeing, they just kept replaying the towers falling, and I thought, man, since my dad has died, the world has gone to hell. And I had that idea, since you've gone to heaven, the whole world's gone to hell. But I definitely couldn't write it by myself, and I would start it. I had part of that first verse, and Shane and I drove to Tunica one night to gamble, and on the way back, we were talking about different things, and we were talking about how a lot of times families fall apart after a death, and I said, I've always had this idea, and I shared it with him, and he just was riveted by it, and I said, but I just feel like there's no hope in it, so I don't know that it's worth writing, and he said, well, there might not be any hope in it, but I think that we should write it, and so he and I sat down the next week and wrote it, and I think what helped me write it is it's definitely that's not really the story of my family, you know, like my brother's not in and out of jail, and my mom looks real great for her age. And so, I mean, she looks real great for any age, I should say, not just her age. But I think I definitely had to co-write it, you know, and write it with somebody else who really had felt that, and, you know, and I'm glad I did, because, and I wrote it before I made my first record, but it just didn't fit that record, and I struggled with putting it on this one, and I'm glad that Jay Joyce, who produced it, really fought for it, because I see the way it hits people.
Do you feel like part of your life is filling that void?
For sure. For sure.
I mean, what do you do to do that?
Like the void of losing my dad? Well,
or your dad not being there?
You know,
Your dad did things for your family, obviously, that were real important.
Yeah.
So how much of our lives, I think it's important energy, do we spend?
It is. You know, for me, I definitely, you know, you never get over that void. And I think the earlier you lose, the younger you lose a parent, the greater the loss it is. Because every time something big happens, you know, you almost dial that number. You know, and for a while you do dial it.
Sure.
And I think for me, the way I try to fill that void, my dad was the most ambitious person I've ever met. Like, if he set his mind to something, he was doing it. And I just took that on in my life. Like, and I try to be the kind of person that my dad would be proud of. You know, I think we all, sorry to get emotional, I think we all try to be that. I'm sure you do. Yeah. And just, you know, be, just be as much, the parts of me that are like him, to me, are the way that he's kept alive. And like the parts of my brother my brother's a great dad. My dad was a great dad. And so the parts of, I find my dad in my brother and in myself.
If you're like me, I say things sometimes and I go, he's not gone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's how they live on.
Oh, totally.
And you share it with other, even if it's people that aren't in your family.
Yeah.
When you say those things and they're meaningful, and they, you know, that's how lives and people, their spirit doesn't die, because
so
you carry it on.
That's very
I'm building gardens now at our family farm. My dad, you know, kept it alive. We've been farming it since 1807, and it was just about to go completely away, you know. And when he died, I'm like, we're done, you know. It's like we always went down there because he made it fun and made us want to come down there. And just the last couple of years, where our old plantation house burned from 20-something years ago, I laid out bricks on the on the blueprint. The chimneys are still there, and there's 8-foot-tall jasmine hedges all the way around it, and inside it's all gardens, and just to give the next generation a responsibility, you know. And I'm determined to pick up the torch and to make it fun again, you know. And it's kind of come back to life. But those, you know, our family and our friends leave voids, and I think that's a lot of what we do. And anyway.
It is.
I heard it in your music and just had to bring it up, and didn't mean to get too heavy.
That's
but
okay.
You know what? You're a heavy chick, so I can't help myself. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right.